It's Thursday, Weirdos. My name is Mackenzie, and as always, I am joined by...
My name's Sarah.
I'm Chris.
And this podcast is for Weirdos. Okay, so this week, I'm very excited about this. It's actually a topic Christopher and I did a project on in our folklore class for Kristen.
Yeah.
I watched this presentation if it's what I think it is.
You probably did, because it definitely happened in our COVID folklore era.
Then yes, I did.
This is about ghost ships and the phenomena that is ghost ships. How do we feel about said phenomena?
Phenomena.
Do you think it's just, a maritime disaster that was unrecorded? Do you think there could be ships that are being operated by a phantom crew? Do you think that they're just, something?
I'm going to let Chris go first because he already had to debate you on this topic.
Yeah. I think I still hold the opinion that I held whenever we did this.
4 years ago?
4 years ago, which is I don't think that they are necessarily a phenomenon.
Yeah.
Rather than there are different explanations. Like, yeah, a boat could have the whole crew die from whatever. That could be a phenomena.
Yeah.
But I don't think the boat floating around in the ocean is necessarily a phenomena without a crew. But there's also something that I brought up in the presentation, which was the Fata Morgana, and it makes boats and things on the ocean appear like they're floating,
right?
Based on the reflection of the light on
It's
the water.
the horizon line, right? Being weird.
Yeah. It's being weird, so it looks like it's floating, but it's not.
It's the same thing that happens here in the summer whenever the cement is too hot
It's
and then it starts
the
reflecting.
mirage.
Yeah.
Did you know that that's what they think caused the Titanic?
That
happen?
would not be surprising.
So the reason
that
why
makes
they
sense.
couldn't, people think that the reason why they didn't see the iceberg until it was way too late was because one of the things that visual phenomena can do is it can make things look like they're really, really little.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens all the time. If you're driving down Seawall, you can see the boats in the anchorage. They look like they're just like a little speck,
But
and you're like, that's an oil tanker. That's huge. But they think that may be what caused the Titanic, the iceberg that the Titanic hit, to look a lot smaller than it was or further away.
Oh, so
and
they
then
may have been we have time.
they were like, oh, I don't need to call that in yet. We're not pointing straight at it or whatever.
We're
but then
far away.
They were on top of it, and the lookout went, oh, no, I misjudged this.
I like
Okay,
that.
I
That's an
like
interesting
that.
thought.
Yeah.
Oh, can I talk about how I feel about ghost
Yes.
ships?
Oh, yes,
I totally.
I'm so sorry.
I just realized that I didn't. I was
Yes,
like, oh, wait, I
absolutely.
haven't had my turn yet. I love to think about ghost ships. As somebody who is a boat people,
Yeah.
have been tall ship sailor, have definitely been on a boat that people on an oil tanker thought was a ghost ship at one point, which was funny because it was super duper foggy and we were sailing the Alyssa through the anchorage and we weren't sailing, we were motoring because it was foggy and not windy.
Yeah.
And so none of the sails were set and we were just kind of
Scooting through.
drifting through the anchorage. And I saw a man leaning on the railing of the boat in the anchorage go, and run to go get his friends. And I'm sure that by the time that he reappeared, we were gone because we were motoring through the anchorage. And he was like, I saw a ghost ship. It was only a ghost ship.
There's a tall ship.
Right, because who sees a sailing ship from the 1800s in
I wonder if
the
one of
middle
his
of
friends
Galveston?
was just like, bruh, it's the Alyssa.
Bro, we're in Galveston.
Bro, what are you doing?
Bruh,
But
that
anyway.
ship lives here.
Bruh. So anyway, that having been on a ghost ship technically, I love them. I don't know what I think they are though. I don't know if I think that they truly are the phantasmal apparition of a sunken ship. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm firmly in the teach me Mackenzie category.
Well, some definitions of variations on ghost ships.
Love the definition.
And then we're going to break it. My notes are kind of broken down into 3 ghost ship categories. So we have our folklore, legends, and mythology style vessels.
Uh-huh.
So generally vessels that are maybe real, maybe not. Maybe were real but reached a folkloric status.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Some unsubstantiated ones, some ones that are pretty clearly fictional, so nobody could ever. a couple of those where it's like pretty clearly maybe not anything,
Right.
but people have made it seem like it's a thing.
Right.
And then historically attested ghost ships,
Neat.
quote unquote. And then I have some little brief bits from a 1937 book that was written about two, I would say these are more folkloric or unsubstantiated ghost ships. And then a couple of these in the timeline I will talk a little bit more about because one of them is still a commonly used mythological one. To get started, this definition of ghost ships comes from Victoria Syret. They, unsure, is an archives assistant with the Royal Museums, Greenwich.
Oh, neat. In the UK.
In the UK. This article that I read was from 2018, I believe. It says, ghost ships, sometimes also called phantom ships, are vessels with no living crew aboard. These may be real, derelict ships found adrift with their crew missing, such as the 19th century HMS Resolute, or fictional and folkloric ones like the apocryphal Octavius. And that comes from their library archive. If you're ever looking. It's on the RMG website. A couple of other definitions that came from the Wikipedia because, listen, it's such an easy place to start.
Right.
And if anybody ever goes and looks to be like, well, where'd Mackenzie get her notes? The Wikipedia, chock full of information with really great external citations. I just didn't have the time to dig through 20 external citations about every single vessel on this list.
Right.
The term, so one of the definitions for ghost ships is also a term used for ships that have been decommissioned and not yet scrapped, as well as drifting boats that have been found after breaking loose of their ropes and being carried away by the wind or the waves. So when I was in Philadelphia, they have a shipyard, it's an old Navy yard, that is full of technically they're reserve ships, but they call them ghost ships because they're really just sitting there tied up. They're
sitting there waiting to be scrapped, essentially.
Basically, they're in if we ever went into World War III, they could be, there's a 2-year call up on them, but nobody does maintenance on them. So I hope we never get to the point where we need those boats because
that would be bad.
Not good. And then more recently, which is, I'm going to use this definition, but that's not really, this isn't what we're talking about today. There's also ships that travel with their mandated AIS or automatic identification system turned off to avoid detection and monitoring. Militarily have been referred to as ghost ships.
Oh, because they can't be found.
Because they can't be found.
That makes sense.
Okay. Obviously not the phenomena we're talking about today. That's
a
whole different topic that I'm not getting into.
Espionage. We're talking about
do love me
spooky.
Do love me in espionage? Not it.
Not today.
Not today. So there's some folklore, legends, and mythology. Starting undated, but these do in each of their sections go chronologically.
Got it.
Okay.
So they aren't dates, but they go in the order that you're going to tell.
Well, there's 3 undated ones, and then the rest of them do have dates. I'm just starting with ones that are so old they may not have a dated.
Got it.
Story. So there is the Chase Gallery. I think it's French, and I probably butchered that horribly. It is a haunted canoe that is doomed to paddle the skies of Quebec.
The skies?
A canoe?
Yeah, that one is. Hold on.
Quebec?
So that one, just since you guys got excited about it.
Canoe in the sky?
It's also known as the bewitched canoe or the flying canoe. It's a popular French-Canadian tale of lumberjacks from camps working around the Gatineau River who make a deal with the devil, a variant of the Wild Hunt story. Its best-known version was written by Henri Beaugrand, 1848 to 1906.
Oh, my God.
What a dude. It was published in the Century magazine in 1892. So basically the origin is a French legend about a rich nobleman. I can't talk. I'm so sorry. named Gallery, who loved to hunt. He loved it so much he refused to attend Sunday Mass.
Oh.
As punishment for this sin, he was condemned to fly forever through the night skies, chased by galloping horses and howling wolves in a fashion reminiscent of the Wild Hunt stories.
Oh my God.
When French settlers arrived in Canada, they swapped stories with the natives, and the tale of Gallery was combined with a First Nations legend about a flying canoe. In time, bark canoes became associated with the French-Canadian culture as well. When some of the earliest French Canadians arrived in New York City, they were reported to have landed on the banks of the Hudson River to the amazement and admiration of people who had never seen bark canoes in their waters before.
Huh.
Fascinating.
So that's my first. The original says undated because it was written in 1892, that clearly was oral folklore.
Right.
For
That's when it was
longer.
written down. That's not when it's from.
Yeah. Another oral folklore story that doesn't have a date to it. I'm gonna say it's like Caluche. It's Chilote mythology from Chile.
Oh.
So more Spanish, but but it's ancient.
It's old.
Chilean.
Yeah.
So it's. I promise I do look up how to say these, but some of them are so weird, like the pronunciation just does not stick. Anyway, that's a mythical ghost ship according to local folklore and Chilote mythology. It sails the seas around Chiloe Island, Chile, at night. So it's just a floating boy.
Just a boat out there.
Just a boat out
Boat.
there. The fire ship of Baie des Chaleurs is a form of ghost light, an unusual visual phenomenon that appears at Bathurst, New Brunswick, Canada. The phenomenon has been the source of many a tall tale and is said to appear as a flaming 3-mast galley, much like the style of ship featured on New Brunswick's provincial flag.
Flaming?
It's on fire.
On fire?
On fire.
That's a big boat to set on fire.
That one is also oral folklore that does not have a set date.
Right.
Okay. 1748 onwards, the Lady Lavabond is said to have been deliberately wrecked on 13th February 1748 off of Goodwin Sands, Kent, England. And it's said to reappear off the Kent coast every 50 years.
Every 50 years?
Every 50 years,
She comes back.
apparently.
God damn.
Interesting. So how many times has she been there?
So 1748,
Several.
a good
She's
handful.
been back several times.
Several times.
So we're not quite to
An anniversary.
an anniversary yet.
Okay, well.
From this one just says the 18th century onward, so this one doesn't have a super clear date.
So 1700s.
1700s. The ghost ship of Northumberland Strait is the apparition of a burning ship that is regularly reported between Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick, Canada. The Canadians, man, there is from 1795 onwards, and this one I'm going to go into more detail on.
Huzzah.
Okay.
The Flying Dutchman is said to be a ship commanded by a captain condemned to eternally sail the seas. It has long been the principal ghost ship legend among mariners and has inspired several works.
It's in Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah. It is a legendary ghost ship, allegedly never able to make port, doomed to sail the seas forever.
Forever.
The myths and ghost stories are likely to have originated from 17th century golden age of the Dutch East India Company and of generalized Dutch maritime power, because that era was just,
The Dutch were doing it.
The oldest known extant version of the legend dates from the late 18th century. According to the legend, if hailed by another ship, the crew of the Flying Dutchman might try to send messages to land or to people long dead. Reported sightings in the 19th and 20th centuries claimed that the ship glowed with a ghostly light. In ocean lore, the site of this phantom ship functions as a portent of doom. It was commonly believed that the Flying Dutchman was a 17th century cargo vessel known as a flute. The Flying Dutchman is used commonly still in major media. If you think Davy Jones and everything in Pirates of the Caribbean, they actively use the Flying Dutchman and its name in that movie. But it's still that style of can't make port, but it's the Flying Dutchman.
He's just also a squid.
It's just yes.
He's a squid man.
Yes, Davy Jones is a squid man.
He's a squid man in
in
Pirates of the Caribbean.
In the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, the crew is said to the crew obviously looks like
part of the ship, part of the crew.
Yeah, monstrous oceanic creature kind of things. Not necessarily the case in all Flying Dutchman folklore. Some of them just look like crew members. Like, it just looks like a normal ship, normal crew. There's a sighting by Prince George of Wales, who was the future King George V. He was on a 3-year voyage during his late adolescence in 1880 with his elder brother, Prince Albert Victor of Wales, and their tutor, John Neil Dalton. They temporarily shipped into the HMS Inconstant after the damaged rudder was repaired in their original ship, the 400-ton corvette Bashant. The Prince's log, indeterminate as to which prince due to later editing before publication, records the following for the pre-dawn hours of 11 July 1881 off the coast of Australia. July 11th. At 4 a.m., the Flying Dutchman crossed our bows, a strange red light as of a phantom ship all aglow. In the midst of the light, which the masts, spars, and sails of a brig 200 yards distant stood out in strong relief as she came up on the port bow, where also the officer of the watch from the bridge clearly saw her, as did the quarterdeck midshipman, who was sent forward at once to the forecastle. But upon arriving there was no vestige nor any sign whatever of any material ship was to be seen either near or right away to the horizon, the night being clear and the sea calm. 13 persons altogether saw her. At 10:45 a.m., the ordinary seaman, who this morning reported the Flying Dutchman, fell from the foretopmast cross trees to the top gallant forecastle and was smashed to atoms.
That's a big fall.
Yes, for people that don't know boats, that's a really far drop,
especially at that era.
Yes,
that's a ball. I can't say it. Big fall.
Big fall.
Big fall. Go boom.
So that's why, again, that it's common that it brings some kind of doom.
Harbinger.
They also talk about the Flying Dutchman with the Fata Morgana or the mirage phenomena. Basically, the sun rays form a perfect picture in the air of objects on the earth, like images somebody sees in glass or water, but they were not generally upright, as in the case of this ship, but reversed, turned, bottom
Flippy.
up. This appearance in the air is called a mirage. He told a sailor to go up to the fore and look beyond the phantom ship. The man obeyed and reported that he could see on the water below the ship in the air one precisely like it. So it's all about
perspective.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Flying Dutchman, and I think commonly people often refer to the actual floating phantom ships. People are like,
it's the Flying Dutchman.
Yeah, I think people generally assume that unless you are in an area with another well-known phantom ship of some kind or another ghost ship,
right?
I think a lot of people are like,
it's
always
the Flying Dutchman.
I'm like, that's not true. It does have a bubble. That one does kind of have a location.
An area? No, it's everywhere.
It lives in a place.
Okay, 19th century onwards, so 1800s, the Princess Augusta, misremembered in local folklore as the Palatine, was wrecked near Block Island, Rhode Island in 1738.
What a weird name.
Since then, an apparition known as the Palatine Light has been reported. So I think similarly to the fire ship, it's like a light phenomena.
Neat.
And then 1813 onwards, after the American schooner Young Teaser, which was
that's a thoroughbred name. That's a horse name.
Teazer.
Oh, of course.
Teaser. Was sunk in an explosion in Mahone Bay, Nova Scotia, Canada during the War of 1812. A burning apparition known as the Teaser Light has been reported. So there's a lot of Canadian phantom ghost light phenomena.
I didn't see a single ghost light when I was in Canada. I'm a little offended.
1858 onwards, the Eliza Battle was a paddle steamer that burned in 1858 on the Tombigbee River. In Alabama. She is reported to reappear fully aflame on cold and windy winter nights.
Fully aflame?
Fully aflame to foretell of impending disaster.
Oh. Damn. I love that it...
I love
the idea that it's like it comes back and it's like something bad's gonna happen to you, and it's like, yeah, I just had to see a ship on fire. Is it that? Is that the bad thing that's gonna happen to me?
Is that the bad thing? I
And
saw
then
a ship
this
on
I had
fire.
to witness this thing.
1872 or 1882. This one looks like it's contested as far as like what the actual date was.
That's fair.
A legend states that the Iron Mountain mysteriously disappeared in 1872. and left barges it was towing floating down the river. In reality, the ship ran aground and sank north of Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Mississippi in 1882, and its destruction was never mysterious. So it's one of those legends where it's like, oh, what happened? And it was like not fucking.
It just fucking sank.
An apparition of the HMS Eurydice has been reported where the ship sank in 1878 off of the Isle of Wight in the English Channel. Witnesses include a Royal Navy submarine in the 1930s and Prince Edward, Earl of Wessex, in 1998.
1998.
Oh.
That was the year I
That's
was born.
your year.
That's my year. 1886, the Phantom Canoe of Lake Rotomahana was
I don't know why the canoes are so fun to me.
Wako Wairua, a spirit canoe in Lake Rotomahana, New Zealand, seen 11 days before the deadly eruption of nearby Mount Tarawera, which devastated the lake and surrounding area. 1895, a spectral galleon, which was seen in Chapel Cove, Newfoundland, allegedly. According to folklore, pirates supposedly buried riches in Chapel Cove, and it is said that those who have gone in search of the treasure have either observed the appearance of the phantom ship or have encountered apparitions on land.
More Canadians.
There's a lot of Canadian lore in this.
Yeah.
1902, the SS Bannockburn vanished on Lake Superior on November 21st, 1902, and subsequently gained a reputation as the Flying Dutchman of the Great Lakes.
Oh.
Which is
I love
not
that.
odd because the Great Lakes have so much maritime
They're
folklore
huge.
about them. 1906, following the wreck of the SS Valencia in 1906 off the coast of Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, there were reports of a lifeboat with 8 skeletons in a nearby sea cave. Lifeboats being rowed by skeletons of the Valencia's victims. The shape of the Valencia within the black exhaust emanating from the rescue ship City of Topeka's funnel, and a phantom ship resembling the Valencia with waves washing over her as human figures held onto the rigging. Sailors also reported seeing the ship itself in the area in the years following the sinking, often as an apparition that followed down the coast. One of the lifeboats from the Valencia was found adrift in 1933.
Okay, I need you to go back like 3 points that you made. One of them was about the image of the boat appearing in the exhaust of
Yes.
another vessel.
Correct.
Please read that point again for me.
Okay.
Just that bit.
I know. I got to find where it starts.
Sorry.
The shape of Valencia within the black exhaust emanating from the rescue ship, so the ship that went to rescue the Valencia, the City of Topeka, its funnel. The name of the ship is City of Topeka.
Yeah.
And a phantom ship resembling the Valencia with waves washing over her as human figures held onto the ship's rigging.
That is absolutely bananas. That is the
Isn't it?
That is the coolest thing I've
Bananagrams.
ever heard.
Absolutely.
All of the other ones, like,
bananagrams.
oh, there were skeletons rowing lifeboats. That's terrifying, and I don't want to see that.
Hate that.
But seeing the shape of a boat that you are rescuing
In
in
your
your exhaust cloud, cuckoo bananas.
Cuckoo bananas.
Please continue.
22 November 1912. The Rouse Simmons, heavily laden with over 3,000 Christmas trees in its cargo hold and piled high on deck, set sail from Thompson, Michigan for Chicago. The following day, it disappeared without a trace. For years afterwards, Lake Michigan mariners claimed to have spotted the Christmas tree ship appearing out of nowhere with its sails in tatters.
It's a little red boat hauling a Crimmas tree.
1928, the Copenhagen was last heard from on December 28th, 1928. For 2 years following its disappearance, sightings of a mysterious 5-masted ship fitting its description were reported in the Pacific Ocean.
28. 12, 28, 28.
Ooh, spoopy.
In 4 years. Anniversary.
In 4 years.
In 4 years. We won't remember that.
No.
It's not going to
I
happen.
don't know. Maybe somebody will remind us.
I'm sure somebody will. A couple of unsubstantiated ones. 1775, the Octavius, a British merchant ship returning from China, was supposedly found drifting off the coast of Greenland. The captain's log showed the ship had attempted the Northwest Passage, which at the time had never been successfully traversed. The ship and the bodies of her frozen crew apparently completed the passage after drifting amongst the pack ice for 13 years. And then from that, I do have, this is a book called Tales. It's here's two. It's one of two that I pulled, but the book is called The Phantom Ship by R.L. Hadfield, written in 1937. These blurbs that I'm reading, or the Octavius one, and then there will be another one later, they come from the Royal Museum Greenwich's library archives.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So, the legend of the Octavius. On August 1775, at midnight, with the winds howling past snow-peaked icebergs, the Octavius aimlessly drifting off the coast of Greenland within 2 miles of the whale ship, the Herald. Come afternoon the next day, after a violent storm that broke apart the ice, Captain Warrens of the Herald spotted the Octavius and, in his excitement, climbed on board. He first came to a cabin and, with a tremor running through him, found a man sitting at a desk with green, damp mold touching the man's cheek and forehead, a pen in his hand, and a logbook before him. The last words on the unfinished page read, 11th November, 1762. We have now been enclosed in the ice 70 days. The fire went out yesterday, and our master has been trying ever since to kindle it again without success. His wife died yesterday. There is not relief. The next cabin held the body of a young woman in the bed, and a man on the floor with flint and steel in his hands as if he were still trying to light the fire. The rest of the crew were found frozen in the beds, and a small dog crouched at the bottom of the gangway stairs.
Oh.
So, that one is the legend. So it's a legend of that.
I want you to know I didn't care until I heard there was a dog.
That's fair.
And then I got really sad.
Sorry.
It's okay. Sad doggy.
1811 to 1813, Napoleon Gallois reported that a French frigate that had found the French privateer Duc de Danzig drifting, covered in blood, with the decaying corpses of the crew hacked and crucified to her masts and in the battery.
Huh?
Bloody papers identified Duc de Danzig and her master, Francois Aregnadoux.
Sure.
Uh-huh.
More soberly, the ship's register of the Maritime Archives state that the Duc de Zantig, unheard of as of 1813, presumed lost with all hands. Unsubstantiated. Don't know why it's got crucifixion, because that's nuck and futs.
Crucified?
Nuck and futz.
Fucking nuts.
1840, the schooner Jenny was supposedly discovered after spending 17 years frozen in the ice barrier of the Drake Passage. Found by Captain Brighton of the whaler Hope, it had been locked in the ice since 1823, the last port of call having been Lima, Peru. The bodies of the 7 people aboard, including 1 woman and a dog, preserved by the Antarctic cold, were buried at sea by the crew of the Hope, and Brighton passed the accounts on to the Admiralty in London. The Jenny is commemorated by the Jenny Buttress, a feature on King George Island near Melville Peak, named by the UK and Arctic Place Names Committee in 1960. October 27th, 1913, the Singapore newspaper The Straits Times published a story according to which the Marlborough, not spelled like the cigarettes, which is why it threw me off for a second, had been discovered near Cape Horn with the skeletons of her crew on board. The Straits Times attributed the story to one published in the London paper, The Evening Standard, on October 3rd, 1913. The Evening Standard mentioned that the story was based on an account cabled from New Zealand, which was yet to be confirmed. The ship that sighted the Marlborough in 1913 was said to be the sailing ship Johnson. 1947, the Orang Medan is said to have been found adrift off of Indonesia with all its crew dead. The boarding party found the entire crew frozen, teeth baring, gaping at the sun. Before the ship could be towed to a home port, it exploded and sank. There is no record that a ship of this name ever existed, and it is believed to be an urban legend.
I was trying to make the same face that the frozen people were making.
It exploded?
I missed that part. Teeth baring, gaping at the sun. So I'm like... It exploded?
Before it could be towed to a home port, it exploded and sank.
Jesus!
Which is why they think it's an urban legend. They don't have a record of the ship under that name in any register.
But
it would be cool if that did happen. It would be Neato Burrito. 2014, 10 years ago. At least 243 refugees disappeared without a trace in the summer of 2014. A human trafficker who arranged a journey to Europe for the refugees claimed that the people were scheduled to depart from Cum's, Libya, but the ship that they would have departed on was never named, and no sign of a ship or the refugees has ever been found. The incident is known as the Ghost Boat Investigation.
You said the incident is known as, and I was like, Refugee Gate or something. Like it's going to have a cool...
No.
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 The Ghost Boat Investigation.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The simplest name they could have given it.
Very creative.
But to some historically attested ghost ships,
Boats.
1750 or 60, the SV Seabird, this merchant brig under the command of John Huxham or Husham or Durham.
I was going to say Huxham's a cool name, and then you gave me two other names.
Grounded herself at Easton's Beach, Rhode Island. Her longboat was missing. She had been returning from a voyage to Honduras and was expected in Newport that day. The ship was apparently abandoned in the sight of land. Coffee was boiling on the galley stove and drifted off course. The only living creatures found on the ship were a dog and a cat.
Oh, thank God they're alive.
A fictional account on how she became derelict was appeared in the Wilmington, Delaware newspaper Sunday Morning Star for October 11th, 1885.
Oh.
I'm glad that the dog and cat made it.
Yeah, me too. I was like, I love that in this account, everybody else went goodbye somewhere.
Everyone else vanished, but a dog and a cat
the
were
dog
like...
and the cat were like
the people-
fine. And
the
also,
people
they
are
left
gone.
their coffee.
Boiling.
Which, like, sailors, that's not a thing.
That's great. What took them? They got abducted by aliens.
May 15th, 1854, the HMS Resolute was a bark-rigged ship of the British Royal Navy that was abandoned after being beset by ice in Viscount Melville Sound, Canada.
Canada again.
I'm telling you, there's a lot of Canada. She had been one of 4 vessels from Edward Belcher's search expedition for John Franklin. The ship drifted some 1,200 miles, 1,900
Kilometers.
kilometers,
Kilometers.
before it was found on September 10th, 1855, off the coast of Baffin Island, Canada, freed from the ice.
Canada.
The Resolute desk, which was constructed from the timbers of the ship, resides today in the Oval Office of the White House, and its twin in the Queen's office in
King
Buckingham
now.
Palace.
I will say...
My brain, I fully, as soon as I read that, went, National Treasure 2?
No,
The
so
Book of Secrets?
you said HMS
Yeah.
Resolute, like, earlier and just now, and when you started, I went, that sounds really familiar. Like, why do I recognize that boat name? I don't know anything about English boats, blah, 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 blah. And then you went the Resolute desk, and I went, oh, my God, National Treasure.
All right, moving on. There's also a picture of the Resolute that I will... Oh, nope, wrong picture. It's for the next boat that I'm going to talk about. It's of the Mary Celeste, not of the Resolute.
Sorry. I like the Mary Celeste.
So do I. That's the one I'm going to talk about more in this section.
I didn't expect to have that big of a reaction.
November 25th, my anniversary, 1872. The SV Mary Celeste, after passing Santa Maria Island in the Azores, November 25th, 1872, the last entry on the ship's slate. The merchant brigantine became derelict in unknown circumstances. No boats were found on board. She was found on December 4th, 1872, between the mainland, Portugal, and the Azores archipelago. The ship was devoid of all crew, but largely intact and under sail, heading toward the Strait of Gibraltar. Arthur Conan Doyle's story, J. Habakkuk Jefferson's statement, is based on this incident. Doyle alters certain aspects of the original story, including the name of the ship from Mary to Marie Celeste. So the Mary Celeste, erroneously referred to as the Marie Celeste because of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle,
God damn Sherlock Holmes.
was a Canadian-built, American-registered merchant brigantine that was discovered adrift and deserted in the Atlantic Ocean off the Azore Islands. The Canadian brigantine de Gracia found her in a disheveled but seaworthy condition under partial sail and with her lifeboat missing. The last entry in her log was dated 10 days earlier. She had left New York City for Genoa on November 7th and was still amply provisioned when found. Her cargo of alcohol was intact, and the captain's and crew's personal belongings were undisturbed.
Oh.
None of those who had been on board were ever seen or heard from again.
Damn.
Huh.
She was built in Spencer's Island and launched as the Amazon in 1861. Then she was transferred to American ownership and registration in 1868, where she got the name Mary Celeste. There were salvage hearings in Gibraltar following the recovery of the Mary Celeste. The court's officers considered various possibilities of foul play, including mutiny by the Mary Celeste's crew, piracy by the De Gracia crew or others, and a conspiracy to carry out insurance or salvage fraud. No convincing evidence supported these theories, but unresolved suspicions led to a relatively low salvage award for how much was left on her.
Damn.
Because of the inconclusive nature of the hearings, there's continued speculation as to what had happened to the ship's occupants, and it's been the story of the Mary Celeste has been repeatedly complicated by false detail and fantasies. Hypotheses have included effects on the crew of alcohol fumes rising from cargo, submarine earthquakes, water spouts, attack by a giant squid, and or paranormal intervention.
Paranormal intervention.
Yes. After the Gibraltar hearings, the Mary Celeste continued in service under new owners. In 1885, she was deliberately wrecked off the coast of Haiti as part of attempted insurance fraud. The story of her abandonment has been recounted and dramatized in documentaries, novels, plays, and films. And the name of the ship has become a byword for unexplained desertions. So, that's the Mary Celeste. It's one of my favorite phantom ship stories as far as like crew go missing, but still under power.
Yeah.
I have a picture of an engraving of the Mary Celeste.
Oh, neat.
After that was done when she was found. Like it's her floating unmanned.
We'll put it on the Instagram.
I will put it on the Instagram. At this pod is the number 4 Weirdos. Check it out. All right. August 29th, 1884.
1884.
So the day we launched our trailer episode a lot of years ago. The the SV Resolven, another merchant brig found abandoned between Baccalieu Island and Catalina, Newfoundland, and Labrador. Her boats were missing. Her logbook was posted to within 6 hours of being sighted. So that's a really short time frame for everybody to disappear and nobody to see them.
Right.
Other than a broken yard arm, she had suffered minimal damage. The galley fire was alight. The lamps were burning. A large iceberg was was sighted nearby. It has been claimed that none of the 7 crew members or 4 passengers were accustomed to northern waters, and it was suggested that they panicked when the ship was damaged by ice, launched the lifeboat and swamped, though no bodies were found. 3 years later, Resolven was wrecked while returning to Newfoundland from Nova Scotia with a load of lumber. So
they think that because the people who were on the boat were not used to ice, the boat encountered ice that it could definitely handle. They freaked out, got off the boat, and then died in the lifeboat.
yes,
Rip.
because they went.
Because everything was still normal on the boat.
They panicked and just bailed.
They said, bye-bye.
We abandoned ship. And I was like, shouldn't have done that. Should have just stayed on board.
Boat was probably fine.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Boat was definitely fine.
just
It was still floating.
A damaged yard is not a reason to abandon ship.
No.
Just as a boat person. 1885, the 21 Friends, which is such a fun name for
The
a
21
vessel.
Friends?
The 21 Friends. This 3-masted schooner was built in 1872. She was financed by a group of 21 Philadelphia Quakers and consequently named the 21 Friends.
Aww.
In 1885, returning to Philadelphia with a full load of lumber from Brunswick, Georgia, the ship was rammed by the John D. May off the coast of Cape Hatteras.
Don't ram the 21 Friends.
Captain Jeffries removed his crew and abandoned the vessel. The ship and cargo were left to the mercy of the sea. Captain Jeffries' concern for the safety of his crew was appropriate. However, the Gaskell-made ship proved herself to be more seaworthy than expected. After the collision, the ship was sighted on both sides of the Atlantic over the next 2 years. She finally came ashore in Ireland, where her cargo was salvaged, and she was employed as a fishing vessel. So she really did just bob and weave out there.
I'm just going to bounce around. Me and my 21 friends.
Me and my 21 friends.
Mm-hmm.
This one's pretty brief. In 1897, the abandoned whaler Young Phoenix, which is another great name, was reported to have been drifting in the Arctic and was just found adrift. There's no record of whatever happened to her crew.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it was a whaler, could have easily a whaling
accident.
Yeah. Like if they had
on a whaling boat,
common,
which is super common.
But you wouldn't all be in the whale boat.
I mean, unless somebody else went out to try to rescue the whalers.
They put another group of people in another whale boat to go get the one whale boat, and then they all died.
Which
allegedly.
January 22nd, 1906, SS Valencia, lifeboat number 5. This was the burning one from a few minutes ago. The lifeboat went adrift when the ship sank off the coast of Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada. Lifeboat was found floating in Barkley Sound, Vancouver Island, British Columbia, Canada, in remarkably good condition for 27 years after the sinking.
That's crazy. Wow. 27 years?
Yeah, just bobbed and weaved for 27 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah. November 24th, 1931, the SS Bechimo. This cargo steamer was abandoned after being trapped in pack ice near Barrow, Alaska, and being thought doomed to sink. However, she remained afloat and was sighted at various times between 1931 and 1969 in the Chukchi Sea off the northwestern Alaskan coast without ever being salvaged. She was sighted numerous times, still unmanned and adrift for nearly 40 years. People managed to board her several times, but each time they were either unequipped to salvage her or were driven away by bad weather.
That's crazy.
This would make her one of the longest sailing ghost ships in the world.
Good for her.
Living her life.
Out there living her life, being a ghost ship for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an image of this one. It's the MV Joyita, October 3rd, 1955. After leaving Apia, Samoa, the refrigerated trading and fishing charter boat Joyita became derelict in unknown circumstances. The ship's dinghy and 3 Carly life rafts were missing, and her logbook was also missing when she was found on November 10th, 1955, north of Vanuatu, Fiji. A subsequent injury found the vessel was in poor state of repair, but determined the fate of the passengers and crew to be inexplicable on the evidence submitted at the inquiry. So when she was found, she was partially submerged and listing heavily to the port side. So the picture is of her from facing the bow, so you can see the name plate on it. In 1959, the Royal Navy submarine HMS Virulent, lent to the Hellenic Navy in 1946, was found empty in the Bay of Biscay off of northern Spain. It subsequently became clear that she had been under tow by another vessel. The chain had snapped about 3 weeks earlier.
Okay.
So she was intentionally empty.
And unpowered.
Mm-hmm. Content warning, suicide mention. July 1st, 1969, the SV Tigenmouth Electron. After the last entry in her log was made on July 1st, 1969, the trimaran yacht became derelict in unknown circumstances. The vessel was found on July 10th, 1969 in the North Atlantic, latitude 33 degrees 11 minutes north and longitude 40 degrees 26 minutes west. Investigation led to the conclusion that its sole crew member, Donald Crowhurst, had suffered a mental breakdown while competing in a solo around-the-world race and had committed suicide by jumping overboard. So
sorry, I forgot that that's what his boat was called. I watched a whole documentary about that man. His descent.
I've heard the story before. March 24th, 2006, the MT Jiansang was found drifting 180 kilometers, 110 miles, southwest of Weipa, Queensland, Australia. The ship's origin or owner could not be determined, and its engines had been inoperable for some time. So it looked like it was just bobbing. Unsure what happened to the crew.
Mm-hmm.
April 18th, 2007.
2007.
The SV Kaz 2, a 12-meter-long catamaran, set sail on April 15th, 2007. She was filmed passing George Point, Hinchinbrook Island, Queensland later that day, And on that same day, late in the afternoon, the GPS data showed her to be adrift. She was found adrift on April 18th, 2007, near the Great Barrier Reef, 88 nautical miles off of Townsville, Queensland, Australia. When boarded on April 20th, the engine was running, a laptop was running, the radio and GPS were working, and a meal was set to eat, but the 3-man crew were not on board. All the sails were up, but one was badly shredded, while 3 life jackets and survival equipment, including an emergency beacon, were found on board.
EPIRB.
A search for the crew was abandoned on April 22nd, as it was considered unlikely that anyone could have survived for that period of time. The coroner believed that the men may have fallen overboard.
Fascinating.
Wow.
I think these stories that are from a more modern era are really interesting because of the amount of location equipment and emergency equipment that are required to be on board. AIS is a thing that you have to have.
Right.
So like you're on a GPS, your GPS located by the other ships in the area. So it's just an interesting phenomena to me that it's still commonly occurring
Right.
in a modern shipping era. February 2013, the MV Lyubov, Lyubov, Orlova.
Sure.
Oh.
Lyubov. Anyway, a former Soviet cruise ship was being towed to a scrapyard in the Caribbean when a cable snapped, setting her adrift in international waters 1 day after leaving St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. On February 4th, 2013, she was found approximately 250 nautical miles east of St. John's, approximately 50 nautical miles outside of Canada's territorial waters, and drifting in a northeasterly direction. The crew did not pursue the vessel due to safety concerns. Some news reports claimed it was adrift and populated with cannibal rats.
Oh.
Which just cracks me
The rats
up.
are like, there's
The
nothing
rats.
here to eat, so I'm going to
gonna
eat
eat the
you,
rats.
my rat brother.
Cannibal rats.
Cannibal rats. Trigger warning, dead body.
Thank you.
January 31st, 2016, the Sayo. Manfred Fritz Bajorat of Germany was found dead in his private yacht, which was adrift in the Philippine Sea. His mummified body was found slumped on a desk by the crew from the racing yacht LMAX Exchange. The yacht was rediscovered on February 25th, 2016. An autopsy found Bajorat had died of a heart attack approximately 1 week before being found, and sea conditions preserved the body.
The salt.
The salt
Which is-
mummified him in a week.
April 2024.
Oh.
This year?
This year. Fishermen found an unnamed fishing ship on the Caete River in the region of Bragança, Para, Brazil. I fucked that word up.
It's
for
Brazil.
sure.
It's Portuguese, so you're not going to know how to say it regardless.
Near the
'Cause
Amazon
it's not going to
Delta.
be Spanish.
Presumably having come from Mauritania. Speculated destination to the Canary Islands. The ship probably got lost at sea and went adrift of the south equatorial current. Its last sighting at Mauritania was in January 2024, so presumably the voyage lasted for 3 months. All of 9 occupants were found dead. Ship register showed the journey started with 25 occupants. Coroner stated that their cause of death was dehydration and inanition. It is speculated that the first 16 dead people were thrown at sea by the last ones who endured being found dead ashore. And then the only other folkloric one that I have,
It's the annihilation
Uh-huh.
is exhaustion caused by lack of nourishment.
so
So-
starvation.
But not starvation. You're
starvation.
dying because you're tired because you haven't eaten anything.
Interesting. So to my one other tale that I have from R.L. Hadfield's book it's called The Cursed Squando, is the name of the ship.
Squando.
Squando.
That's a good name.
It is a good name. Content warning. Murder. Back in 1890, the Norwegian ship Squando docked itself off the Embarcadero in San Francisco. It is said that the captain and the first mate got on well right up until the point when the captain's wife came on board. No one knows exactly what happened between these three, but sadly, this was to be the first mate's last voyage. In a violent hatred, the captain and his wife not only murdered the man, but hacked off his head.
Oh.
The murderous couple then tossed the headless corpse into the San Francisco Bay and kept the head in the locker under the captain's bunk. Soon after, the headless corpse of the first mate was discovered in the San Francisco Bay, and the captain and his wife were captured and executed. The story of the ship doesn't finish there.
Oh, God.
The owners of the ship found a new captain and crew. However, within a month, the 4 crew members mutinied and killed their captain.
Oh my God.
The next 2 captains met with similar fates, one dying from poison from a cut on his hand, the other during a violent squall at night. By 1893, the entire crew, fed up with the cursed nature of the ship, deserted it in Bathurst, New Brunswick. The ship's reputation as a haunted and cursed vessel made it impossible for the owners to hire a new crew, and even unable to keep the night watchman. It's easy to scoff at ghost stories during the day, but when the wind picks up howling through the deserted creaking ship, through the loose riggings, the groans of the deck and shifting shadows, it is another matter entirely. One night watchman made his quarters in the captain's cabin, but upon lighting the lantern felt something firmly grip his sleeve. He glanced down and saw a hand covered in blood. In gripping fear, he traced the arm to a body halting at the dripping neck where the head should have been. A noise caused the watchman to slowly turn to the locker under the bunk as it opened, and a round, gory head rolled out to his feet. The watchman snatched up the lantern and rushed out the door, spending the rest of the night on the deck. The story was the same for the next 6 night watchmen, all hired and quitting over the next few weeks.
Oh my God.
The ship owners eventually dismantled the ship, selling off the material. However, the cursed ship Squando wouldn't relent. Now, occasionally on fog-shrouded nights, you can still make out the ghostly outline of the ship sailing off the Embarcadero along the San Francisco coastline.
New Brunswick. So we're in Canada again.
So much Canada.
We're just in Canada all the time.
Canada.
So, I would say
Canada.
most of these ghost ships are some kind of light phenomena or a derelict, a crew abandonment where...
Right, like just a normal-ass boat that
Just
doesn't have people on it.
A boat that doesn't have people on it. I think the only one that comes alongside the, like, phantom crew is the stories of, like, the Flying Dutchman, where that's been perpetuated in folkloric, conditions over and over again. Or, like, the Valencia, because that story includes, like, the skeletons crew.
Mm-hmm.
I think the folklore of a phantom crew also comes from, like, there's a whole Scooby-Doo movie on a phantom ghost ship crew, obviously that proves to be falsified because it's Scooby-Doo, but, it's still perpetuated in modern media.
Yeah.
Even though it seems like most of these ghost ship phenomena are some form of explainable light phenomena or a maritime disaster that just can't be substantiated. Now, that's not to say they aren't weird, because finding a vessel that has dead bodies on it or
is empty.
Or just is empty, because, like, an unmanned empty ship that has food and things still working, like electronics, especially electronics that are, still functioning correctly, is just a very unnerving, unsettling experience.
So eerie.
How'd you guys feel about that? What did you learn? What do you think?
So to me, going into this, ghost ships have always been the, like, Flying Dutchman kind of thing, where it's oh, you're seeing a spectral vessel, not necessarily this is a ship that has been missing for 50 years or whatever, coming out of the fog with nobody on board, but nothing seems to be wrong. So we don't know where the people went or why they went or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting that, like, that is what the majority of ghost ships are, is they are this, like, derelict maritime disaster or crew abandonment issue or something like that, where we don't know why they don't have people on them.
Right, and especially when so many of them are in saleable condition. When
right, like there's nothing wrong with the boat.
Years, like there's nothing, minor damage, but nothing that should really have caused an abandoned ship maneuver.
Right.
No logbook stating that they were going for a rescue or there was another ship involved. And it's also interesting to see, like, which ones are also weather related. Everybody froze because they didn't know how the Northwest Passage worked, right?
Because no one had done it.
Because nobody had done it, right? It's just interesting to, like, see those variations, I think, for me.
Yeah.
I personally, I think just the abandoned ships are so fascinating. Like, I desperately want to know what happened, and, like, that's my major takeaway of, like,
yeah,
that was my favorite
It's
category.
It's
if
like,
I could have
where
a-
did they go?
If
Yeah.
I could have a TV show like Unsolved Mysteries,
Uh-huh.
but instead of true crime stories,
It's just boats?
abandoned ships, I would
That'd be
watch
fun.
the crap out of that. Like I
That'd
would
be really cool.
That'd be
And I
so
think it's
cool.
I think for the three of us, and I could be tell me if I'm wrong. I think because
You're
we
wrong.
have such a tie to one, we have a tie to the maritime industry because of our degrees.
Right.
I think because we still have outside ties besides like just the fact that we got maritime based degrees.
We got those
Mhm.
degrees for a reason.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you are really into
I like-
nautical archaeology.
like boats.
And you were a tall ship sailor
For 10 years.
for 10 years. I do purchasing and logistics for an active training ship. Like I
Right.
am
Like you work for boat.
I work for boat, and I'm active. Not only am I, seeing historic ships. This is the training ship that we have is a converted cargo vessel.
Right.
So, and then I'm also seeing the expansion into a brand new class of training ships that is being released right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So I have knowing what I know now about navigation equipment and
Right.
everything that goes into the
Mhm.
training of mariners for people to just like the thought of people abandoning a ship, but everything seeming fine is even more unnerving because of what I know now about the capacities of those ships. So I think that's everything you need to know about ghost ships. If you have anything that you learned from this that you want to tell us about it on our socials. It is on Facebook. This podcast is for Weirdos. On Instagram @thispod is the number 4 Weirdos, the same for TikTok. You can also shoot us an email with any questions you might have for us about any of the topics we've covered so far or anything you'd like to see in the future to thispodcastisforweirdos@gmail.com. Check us out there. Give us a follow. Rate and review us. We are on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and most other associated podcast listening platforms. Give us a follow. Shoot us a rating. We'd love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. So yeah, that's all we have for this week. We'll see you next week for something ooky, spooky, and fun.
Thanks for listening.
This podcast is for Weirdos.
Are you a weirdo?
Thursdays are for the phenomena.